guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. We finally got some of our dahlias planted. It's been such a funny season because we've had so much rain and it's been super cool. I feel like summer just started about a week ago for us here in the Pacific Northwest here in Oregon. I garden in zone 8B. If you're new to our channel, welcome. But last year we planted our dahlias super late because our backyard was being worked on and our beds weren't ready. So last year I think we planted ours about August and we still got some blooms left. Or blooms that year, last year. This year we're still late, but not as late as last year. So typically we plant dahlias around Mother's Day over here in the Pacific Northwest, but because the temperatures have been so cool and so wet, we weren't able to get them planted. And plus the ranunculus are still blooming their little heads off, but tomorrow or the day after, I'm gonna pull them out. I've told them the dahlias need to go in. Your guys are done. So anyways, let me turn my camera on. Let me show you guys what we've done. I'll talk to you a little bit about the plans that we have for the rest of the beds and the rest of the dahlias. So first off, I am so happy with the way our ranunculus and anemones have done this season. If you guys follow us on social media, I have been posting a lot about our flowers and harvesting. We also had some really beautiful foxgloves over there blooming, and I'll put up some pictures and videos, but they just did so well. I am gonna cut them down to see if we can get more blooms, but you can tell that the ranunculus are pretty, like, they're done, like they're fizzling out. They don't really like the heat. Once it gets about 80 degrees, once the temperatures reach about 80 degrees, they're pretty like tired out, and it's like not for them. They are a cool loving flower, and same with the anemones. So we are going to actually pull them out, and we'll do this in a separate video, but basically what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to harvest all of these blooms and just give them away and maybe make a couple of arrangements, but we're going to cut them down, and then we're going to lift everybody up, and then I'm going to leave all of the leaves on and just let it dry out so it's feeding the corms, so essentially like feeding the bulb. And then I'm going to store them probably indoors somewhere and then plant them back out in the fall. But you guys, some of these have just been so beautiful. Look at this pastel anemone, like, oh, so pretty. Look at that. They almost look, I don't know, like ethereal. They're so pretty. We've also had some really bright colored ones. Like, look at that. It's like a red, let's see. And just like some pretty colors, like super bright pink, some really pretty yellows. And then I also, not to get off topic here, but I also threw in a bunch of poppy seeds, and I was like, let's just see what happens, and this is what happened. So I'm definitely gonna sow some in the fall instead of spring like I did. Again, these should have been wrapping up by now, but because it's been so like wet, everything just took a long time. So I can come over here, look at these. Look how pretty that is. Isn't that pretty? Oh, it's been so nice. Anyway, so let's go talk about the dahlias. So before we talk about what we've done, let's talk about how you should plant dahlias. So it's recommended that you dig a hole 46 inches deep, you plant your tuber, and then you space them about 18 inches apart. Now, because we don't have so much space, but we have a lot of dahlias to plant, my plan is what I'm doing is planting them about 8 inches apart. I was going to do 7, but I think that's pushing it. So I did it about 8 inches apart. So it is a tight manner of spacing and planting, but it's going to be kind of an experiment. Last year we did the same thing. We planted them pretty close, but because the season was so short, the plants didn't get that big. This year they're obviously going to get a little bit bigger, so we'll see how they're going to do. Now, if you recall, we planted our dahlias like that last year as well. We planted them pretty close. I think we did a flower garden tour, which I'll link down below, but we planted them pretty late, so they didn't get super big. The plants themselves didn't get that big, so there wasn't too much concern there. Now this year, because we are planting planted them earlier, these do have the potential of getting a lot bigger than last year. So this is still an experiment. So I would still recommend you plant your dahlias, if you haven't already, about 12 to 18 inches apart. I just want to see how productive these will be with this type of space. Now let's talk about our cuttings, which a lot of you have been messaging me about. You've asked about how our cuttings are doing. These are the ones that we ordered from Stonehouse Dahlias. I know some of you, unfortunately, have been having issues, which I'm so sorry. That's such a bummer. I know that's not fun for you as the customer or for them as the grower and supplier. So anyways, I hope that's going okay for you guys, and they're handling it well. So the only one that's not a cutting here is this one right here. This was actually a tuber that I pre-sprouted inside, and I just never did anything with it. And the reason why I did that was because it was pretty shriveled, so it was really hard to see the eyes. So instead of just planting it and hoping it for the best, I pre-sprouted them to see if there are viable eyes, and obviously there was. So these over here are the ones that were the cuttings that I ordered. And as you can tell, they're doing really well. They did suffer a little bit. They had a little bit of some black spots right when they arrived, which I knew was going to happen because that's typical sometimes when it goes through shipping. But overall, I've been inspecting them like every day to see if there's anything funky. There were a couple of leaves that just were a little bit wilting, but I think that's also because of the sun, and I've been overhead watering these because I didn't want to turn on our beds because of the tubers are still not, like, all of them are sprouted. So these I've just been hand watering until everybody else pops up before we turn on this bed. But they're doing great, guys. Like, I am pleasantly surprised. This is my first year ordering cuttings, and my experience has been great. I know not a lot of you have that same experience, but I'm really sorry that you guys are experiencing your experience isn't the same as mine. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the setup that I have in these beds. So as you guys know, we built these beds last year, and they're phenomenal. I love them. I love that they're short, they're low profile. We were able to have this really beautiful mix of soil in here, and it's like very sandy, which dahlias love. Dahlias love a well-drained soil. So if you have a space in your garden that has that, like, I would totally recommend you plant them there. Obviously full sun for dahlias, they love that. As far as watering goes, we have drip tape that we installed last year, and it's still doing pretty good. I do have to staple them back in because we lifted this when we tilled the bed and mixed some compost. So that's something we did do when we planted our tulips and our renuncs. We tilled all of the beds with compost, and then as you guys saw today in the video, I added some Biotone starter fertilizer. I've had really great success using that for dahlias. If you can't use Biotone or you don't have access to it, you can also use bone meal or steer manure, cow manure. Even if you've already planted your dahlias, you can still supplement with cow manure and steer manure. They love that. And it's just, we'll talk a bit about fertilizing in just a sec. And our emitter holes are about every 6 inches on our drip tape. I feel like the 6 inches gives it a really good coverage, and we have 4 rows in each bed. Actually, just kidding, these only have 3 rows. So we might need to adjust that, but we might also just test it to see, because it actually, if we're doing 3 rows, it kind of falls perfectly where we're going to plant the other tubers. So we might actually just leave that. This bed, I think we did 4 because we planted a lot of annual flowers, sunflowers, so things that just needed a little bit more water. I think that's why we didn't plan on doing 3 rows for the dahlias. So anyways, this is like a really great way of watering. I love the drip tape. It saves us a lot of time. Now again, for dahlias, you do want to water less frequently but deeper. So a lot of farms will water for about an hour every few days. Again, it also depends on the temperature. For us, every couple of days, up for about, again, 30 to 45 minutes is what we're going to do. We do have a day coming up that's going to be about 98 degrees, which is pretty warm for us here in the Pacific Northwest. So I might hit them in the morning just a little bit so they can make it through that really hot day. So anyways, deep watering promotes bigger roots, stronger roots. That's for anything. If you don't have drip tape or irrigation, you could also use a bucket, which I love to do, especially for newly planted trees. I'll just puncture a few holes in like a Home Depot bucket, fill it up, and then just leave it at the plant, like right by the root ball. You could also take your hose and just barely turn it on and just have it like slowly trickle, or just water, like, you know, water a little bit, walk away, come back, water it again, just so you're really like getting that deep water. Now for fertilizing, we already started our dahlias strong with some biotone. Again, bone meal, steer manure, cow manure all work really well as well. In about 3 weeks, once I see everybody emerge, I am going to use more blooms. It's what we've used in the past. It's what was recommended to me by a dahlia farmer that I completely trust. So that's what we like to use for our flowers, and we do that about every 3 weeks, especially during the growing season. Typically dahlias take anywhere from 75 to 120 days to bloom from when you first plant them, and of course that can be manipulated based on weather, temperature, fertilizing, watering. So we really do try to push our flowers a little bit more than we typically would just planting them and leaving them. I know some people don't really fertilize throughout the season, and that's fine too, but I've just always found that ours are always really happy once they get the more bloom. I'll link it down below and you guys can order it online. I've showed you guys this before. Oh, I hear ambulance. Sorry about that. Hopefully everybody's okay. But it's pretty easy to use. It's a liquid fertilizer. So liquid fertilizers are really good because they're easy to apply to plants. So anyways, that's what I recommend. If you're not going to use more bloom, you want to make sure that you're using something that's low nitrogen. I see a lot of people use things with high nitrogen, and dahlias just don't like that. So when you're looking at those 3 numbers on a fertilizer, you always want to make sure that the potassium and phosphorus are higher than the nitrogen. So maybe like a 2-4-4 or a 4-10-7, anything where the 2 P's, so the potassium and the phosphorus, are double what the nitrogen is. So low nitrogen is the way to go for dahlias. Now, as far as staking goes, we're going to do staking a little bit different than we've done in the past as well. Usually we do bamboo or metal posts, and we kind of put it like I would say every 3 feet. But what I'm going to do this year is, because we're planting them so tight, we're going to put 4 T-posts, so 1 in each corner, and then we're going to corral them. So we'll show you guys that probably in our next video when we plant the other dahlias, because typically you want to stake around the same time that you're planting. Again, I've talked about different staking methods. You can use tomato cages, you can use just individual bamboo, or those like fiberglass posts. You can use those as well. Those work really well. And then just tie, I usually just use like string. I don't use anything fancy, just this like organic looking string. But I just want to keep it simple. I really do. And I think I might not even put posts in the middle row, because I feel like the 2 outermost rows of dahlias are going to support the one in the center. So, and we don't get too windy over here. Like, we do get a little bit of wind, and I'm sure I just totally jinxed myself by saying that. And I do recommend that you do, because you just never know how nature is going to react. So, but I think doing the T-posts, they're pretty heavy duty. And I think because our beds are not that long, they're about 4 feet wide and 17 feet long, or 16 feet long. So anyways, that's what we're going to do. And we can always add stake if we need it. We can always add more T-posts, and then we'll just corral them with 2 levels of string. So that's what we're going to do for our staking. Anyways, that is going to wrap up today's video. I would love to hear about how your dahlias are doing this season if you are growing them. I know our growing season is vastly different from so many of you guys across the country, or across the world really. So yeah, let me know how yours are doing this year. I'm excited to get the other ones planted, and of course we'll do a video on that as well. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.